Good morning and happy Memorial Day. We're going to be discussing Chapter 4, Diversity in the Workplace. In this chapter, there's 5 questions you as a manager or HRM manager is going to look at. Number 1, are there business reasons I should pay more attention to in managing diversity? What are the leading companies doing in this area? And what can I, again the manager, do to reverse the perception among many managers that the growing diversity of the workforce is actually a problem? And then how can I maximize the potential of the racially and ethnically diverse workforce? And finally, what can I do to accommodate women and older workers? I want you guys to take a quick look at your key terms here at the end of the chapter. They're going to have just a few, but we look at ethnic minorities, managing diversity, culture, EEO for women, that silent generation before World War II, the baby boom generation, Gen X, Gen Y. We look at alternative career paths, extended leave, flexible scheduling, flex time, and job sharing. Now, many of you are probably already familiar with a lot of these terms, but just familiarize yourself again with them because they will be important in this chapter. So in Chapter 4, we look at making business a case for diversity. Now, here's the thing: diversity has become a major competitive factor in many companies. All right, we want to have not just an all Caucasian or white male company anymore like we did 20, 30 years ago. They're looking for females in different ethnicities, different ages who are going to run companies, be on boards, who are going to head up departments and organizations. For those of you who are unconvinced, they must address the 5 major areas when presenting the business justification for diversity. And 5 things we look at is: how does diversity help an organization expand into the global markets? How can diversity help build brand equity, increase consumer purchasing, and grow the business? How does diversity support the organization's human resource strategies? And how does diversity build our corporate image among our consumers? And how does diversity enhance operational efficiency? So building of a business case for diversity in any given company will vary, but in general it will be stated into 2 compelling arguments. For both large and small companies or large and small organizations, the neighborhood in which they sell is the entire world. We're on a global scale now. So their workforce must look and think like that world. The demographics of the United States will change dramatically over the coming decades, so it will be impossible for employers to fill their ranks with members of the traditional workforce, i.e. white males. As it stands now, the U.S. workforce is diverse and becoming more so every year. More than half the U.S. workforce now consists of racial and ethnic minorities, immigrants, and women. The labor force age is 45 to 64 will grow faster than the labor force of any other age group as the baby boomer generation, which was more from 46 to 64, continues to age. At the same time, the labor force age 25 to 34 is projected to decline by 2.7 million. Now, there are attitudes and beliefs about the groups contributing to the diversity that's starting to change slowly. So what we're going to think about or look at here is the workforce diversity, all right, an essential component of HR strategy in this chapter. Now, managing diversity means establishing a heterogeneous workforce, including white men, to perform its potential in the equitable work environment where no member or group has an advantage or disadvantage. Heterogeneous means just a melting pot or smorgasbord of people working, males, females, different ages, different backgrounds, different ethnicities. Now, managing diversity is not the same thing as managing affirmative action. Let me repeat. Managing diversity is not the same thing as managing affirmative action. They're 2 different animals. Affirmative action refers to actions taken to overcome the effects of past or present practices, policies, and other barriers to equal employment opportunity. Now, there's some key differences between equal opportunity and affirmative action and diversity. When we talk about EEO, affirmative action, we look at the fact that it's government initiated, it's legally driven, it's quantitative, it's problem-focused, assumes assimilation, internally focused, and reactive. Diversity, on the other hand, is voluntary. It's productivity-driven, it's qualitative as opposed to quantitative. Opportunity is focused on and encouraged. Assumes integration, internally and externally focused, and it's proactive rather than reactive. Now, there are 5 reasons diversity has become a dominant activity in managing an organization's human resources. It's the shift from managing or manufacturing to a service economy. All right, we've gone global now, so we are now looking to basically put workers in those areas or those neighborhoods or those communities where services are going to be delivered, whether you're in the same area or you're a country or an ocean away. Again, globalization of markets is the key thing. New business strategies that require more teamwork. We have to work together. We're going to have different peoples of different backgrounds, different skill sets working together as a team. Mergers and alliances that require different corporate cultures to work together. And the changing labor market. We have people who are retiring, people who are job jumping, what I call, changing careers, people coming with different skill sets, different backgrounds, entering the workforce all the time now. Therefore, it's key to stay diverse as possible to keep up with the changing evolutions, whether it's public or private organizations. Now, I mentioned the word service economy just a moment ago. Roughly 90% of the U.S. employees work in a service-based industry, and virtually all new job growth will come from service-producing industries. In the service game, customer literacy is the essential key. You have to understand the customer's needs, wants, and their backgrounds, and what they're buying or what they're looking for in the service economy. A growing number of companies now realize that their workforces should mirror their customers. Diversity breeds diversity. The more diverse we are, the more we're going to be, encouraged to go out and seek more diversity in our workforce. All right, you might actually have a payment or a bonus scale for those workers who bring in other workers and they stay for a year or something like that. There might be some kind of benefit or something like that. Managing diversity well is essential to part of the HR strategy. So when we look at this diversity, all right, while we want to diversify our workers and our strategy and everything on the global market, we have to think about the globalization of markets for a moment. All right, as organizations around the world compete for customers, they offer customers choices unavailable to them domestically. We buy foreign cars. All right, Apple, even though it's an American company, most of the parts are made all over the world. If you go to buy chocolate in Switzerland, you can't run down to your local Starbucks and get it. They realize that, and I'm just using chocolate because I'm hungry right now and it's 9:30 in the morning. Some firms have established strong local presence. Advertisements for Japanese-made cars that showcase local dealerships have satisfied American owners. Others have forged strategic international alliances, like I said, Apple, Verizon, Sprint, for example, AT&T. Either way, diversities must be managed by working through domestic diversity, local presence, or by merging national as well as corporate cultures in what we call international alliances. Again, oil industries, building jets, building cars. Successful global leaders measure success in the area of cultural learning as they measure other business factors. Step back for a minute. I know you guys are most of you guys work in the public sector. Look at your demographics for a minute. They're changing constantly. Many hospitals are now going over to India, Malaysia to recruit doctors. Therefore, your demographics are going to change, not just in appearance, but also the language needs. If you don't have like an AT&T language line or someone who can speak the native languages for a lot of these changes, and I'm not just talking Spanish or English, or we've even got Germans coming into East Texas now, but we're talking about people from Nigeria, from Nicaragua. You've got to understand that Spanish is not a universal language in South America. There's different dialects. Therefore, as we try to help our customers, or our clients or our citizens assimilate into our community, we've got to have some type of mechanisms in place to help them, or rather us help them in police response, EMS response, water bills, trash pickups, housing questions that might come up. You need to have someone on standby who's going to be able to help translate or make them understand, even if they're speaking broken English, help them understand what we need from them and what they expect of us so we can have a clear dialogue. Again, it's going back to that original customer service mentality. Now, new business strategies are going to require teamwork. To survive and to serve and succeed, organizations need to accomplish goals that are more defined broadly than ever before. We're not going to be just giving product A or B. We're going to have to give A through Z now in different combinations of each. This means carrying out strategies that no one part of the organization can execute alone. Firms have found that only through work teams can they execute newly adopted strategies stressing better quality, innovation, cost control, and speed. All right? Just remember, your company, your organization is trying to get the highest quality, the most innovative, cost-controlled, i.e. cheapest, and the fastest product out to beat the competitors. Virtual teams, domestic and global, promise new kinds of management challenges. Members are dispersed geographically and organizationally and interact primarily through some combination of electronic communication systems. Give you an example. I'm on 3 task force with Austin doing House bills. One's in child abuse prevention, one is in working with batterers intervention programs, and the other one is looking in domestic violence in the workplace. It is impossible for me to go to Austin every other week and make these meetings. So therefore, we have teleconferences, we Skype. I'll record my vote or record my presentation, send it to the group when they're meeting there. They can call me on a voice conference and we can discuss it afterwards. It's a time saver, it's a money saver, but this is just a very simple example, but most companies are now going to teleconferencing and other things like that, Skype and all these other new, what's the other one? Zoom. Zoom's another one, where they're starting to use these technologies to bring people together closer to work on projects and stay ahead of the competition. Now, diversity, guys, is an inevitable byproduct of teamwork, especially when teams are drawn from diverse base of employees. In college, and some of you guys have had these classes, not everyone's a big fan of teamwork or team projects, group projects. I was never a fan of them. I hate them. Simply because usually 2 or 3 guys are doing the work of the whole group, and you're dragging the other ones along, and there's no incentive. But in the workplace, it's different because their jobs depend on it. Success depends on equaling their paycheck. So most people in this environment are going to be more team driven. Now, mergers and strategic international alliances, something I mentioned earlier. Mergers, acquisitions, and strategic international alliances mean creating partnerships that span under different corporate cultures. According to studies, integrating culture was the top challenge in mergers and acquisitions. Say, American companies with a Japanese company, or American companies with a company in Dubai, and you're making pharmaceutical products. Cultures tend to clash, expectations and perceptions tend to clash. We have to get over that. 50% of the U.S. managers either resign or are fired within 18 months of a foreign takeover, simply because the old way of doing things is not going to last. And they realize that they have to progress, and if these guys can't get on board with the new program and they're going to sit there and just waste oxygen, they get removed. Now, the changing of labor markets over the next 25 years, the U.S. workforce will be comprised of more women, immigrants, people of color, ethnicities, or older workers. It's just how it's going to go. People are living longer, people are going back getting college degrees, and diversity in the workplace is becoming the new norm. Over 500 million people, double the number today, will legally work outside their homes in the next 20 years. The first step to attaining the advantages of diversity is to teach all employees to understand and value the different races, ethnic groups, cultures, languages, religions, sexual orientations, levels of physical ability, and family structures. Only when employees understand these things will they be able to build and trust that it is essential among the members of high-performance work teams. So, when we're talking about diversity at the workplace or workforce, a problem for many organizations is that the reports of discrimination correlate with a tendency to feel burned out, a reduced willingness to take initiative on the job, a greater likelihood of planning to change jobs. Therefore, minorities and women quit companies much more often than white males because of seniority and because of tenure. So who should handle the questions and concerns about diversity? Well, you have to look inside your organization. Where do you go? Who's going to inquire? You have to show empathy. You have to educate your employees, all of them, that change is not necessarily a bad thing. State your needs or expectations. Don't polarize peoples or groups, and especially if they're going to be a different gender or a different ethnicity. All right, culture is the foundation of group differences, according to the text, and I agree with that. Now, culture refers to the characteristic behavior of people in a country or region. It provides them with an identity, one they retain even when they immigrate, and that is retained by their children and grandchildren as well. Understanding these things that make up a person's cultures helps diverse peoples to deal more constructively with another. Valuing diversity means learning to value and respect styles and ways of behaving that differ from yours. Now, African Americans in the workplace, they make up about 12.1% of the U.S. civilian workforce, at least by 2018 is what they're estimating. As business owners, consumers, and leaders, they're growing in numbers. Despite these encouraging trends, sometimes progress is only through the legal system. So here are some practices to consider. Hire only those search firms with a solid track record of providing diverse slates of candidates for positions at all levels, not just entry. forge links with colleges and universities with significant numbers of minority students, and bring real jobs to the recruiting table. Start formal mentoring and succession programs to ensure that minorities are in the leadership pipeline. You give everyone, no matter who they are, the opportunity to succeed. All right, you just open it up. Set specific goals in critical areas such as the percentages of minorities and women hired promoted in the overall workforce. What is their track record? How many women are eligible to promote? Or how many African Americans or other minorities are in the same league and same boat with the opportunities to promote? And how many of them are actually promoting in an organization? You set goals for the amount of businesses conducted with outside vendors owned by minorities and women. Provide all employees with confidential outlets for airing and settling grievances, for example, telephones or email hotlines within an organization. Now, Hispanics in the workforce, well, they comprise 17.6% of the civilian labor workforce estimated by 2018. Experience may have the same disadvantages as African Americans. The term Hispanic encompasses a large, diverse group of people who come from distinctly different ethnic and racial backgrounds and who have achieved various economic and educational levels. This is largely because the language they speak, Spanish, or because their surnames, or because of their geographic origins. When we talk about Hispanics, we're looking at people who are Mexican, Puerto Ricans, and Cubans, the three that constitute the largest group classified as Hispanic. They are concentrated in 4 geographic areas. The Mexican Americans reside mostly in California and Texas, Puerto Ricans mostly in New York, and a majority of Cuban Americans in Florida. Hispanics are getting wealthier. They own 1.6 million businesses in the United States, 6% of all non-farm businesses, generating about $222 billion in revenue. They are largely untapped market. Now, Asians in the American workforce. The number of Asian Americans in the workforce is 4.7% in 2008 and is expected to reach an estimated 5.6% in 2018, due largely to immigration. Asian Americans are better educated than the average American. Fully 50% of them hold a bachelor's degree or higher. Many hold top jobs, and an increasing number of successful Asian entrepreneurs is increasing in the group's buying power. Now let's shift gears for a minute and talk about women in the workforce. Over the past 30 years, women's expectations and aspirations have risen sharply, largely because of the women's movement during the 1960s, landmark civil rights legislation, and well-publicized judgments against large companies for gender discrimination in hiring, promotion, and pay. 5 key forces account for these changes. Number 1, changes in the family, changes in education, changes in self-perception, changes in technology, and changes in the economy. When we talk about changes in family, women are, there are single moms, there's women who are putting off getting married and having children to focus on their careers. There are dual income where mom and dad are going to work. Changes in education, women are now aspiring to get bachelor's degrees and master's degrees. Self-perception is that perception that whatever a man can do, a woman can do. Same thing or even better in some cases. Changes in technology. We're now a globally connected market, therefore women are entering the workforce just as fast as men are. And then changes in the economy. Needs and wants in that economy and expectations of sales, management, and production have changed basically where men and women are almost, I'm not going to say almost, are equal in some aspects in the work environment. Sometimes women surpass men depending on the product. Now, the statistics presented thus far imply that women have made considerable economic gains over the past 3 decades. However, there is also some disturbing facts that moderate any broad conclusions about women's social and economic progress. Today, U.S. women, for example, make 77 cents for every dollar earned by men. At the current rate of increase, women will not reach wage parity with men until 2017, and 2 years from now. As a group, women who interrupt their careers for family reasons never again make as much money as women who stay on the job. Women in paid jobs still bear most of the responsibility for family care and housework. Just some conclusions based on women in the workforce is that if all the United States working women were to quit their jobs tomorrow and stay at home to cook and clean, businesses would disintegrate. That's a fact. What women tend to think of as women issues are really business issues. They are. Women are not less committed employees. Working mothers especially are not less committed to their work. 3/4 of professional women who quit large companies did so because of a lack of career progress. Only 7% quit to stay home with their children. All right, so that old norm, they want to go home and be with the family, not necessarily true. It is important that executives see that the creative responses to work-family dilemmas are in the best interest of both employers and employees. So moving a little bit to the age section here, we're going to discuss age-based diversity. And as I mentioned earlier, there's 4 groups. There's that silent generation, Generation X, the baby boomers, Generation X, and Generation Y. And it's important we understand where these guys come from and these gals come from, simply because you get a different insight to their work mentality. At present, the U.S. workforce is populated by 4 different generations of workers with different, often conflicting values and attitudes. From 1930 to 1948, if they were born in that time period, they're referred to as the silent generation. Born in the middle of the Great Depression, there was a heavy demand as workers, so there was a heavy work ethic. They went to the best colleges, rose rapidly in corporations, and were paid more than any group in history. In return, they embraced their elders' values and became good organization men. Many have retired, but others still hold position of powers. We're talking about corporate leaders, members of Congress, members of the Senate, CEOs, and so forth. Now, from 1946 to 1964, this is the baby boom generation. They currently account for 54% of the workforce. They believe in the right to privacy, due process, and freedom of speech in the workplace. They also believe employees should not be fired without just cause and that the best should be rewarded, without regard to age, gender, race, or position or seniority. Downsizing has shocked and frustrated many boomers and has created a sense of betrayal, as many of their parents were fired and rushed into early retirement. This also represents a huge base of knowledge and talent that can't be replaced easily. When these guys leave, they're taking 20, 30 years of experience with them, and it's hard to replace that. Few leave the jobs voluntarily. The median years of tenure on the job is 3.1 for workers ages 25 to 34, but 10.0 for those aged 55 to 64. Now, moving into the Generation X, that might be some of us in the course, also known as the baby busters. They were born from 65 to 1980. This is my generation. They represent about a third of the workforce. All right, they grew up in times of rapid change, both social and economic, hurt more by parental divorce, and having witnessed corporate downsizing firsthand, they tend to have independent, cynical, and do not expect the security of long-term employment. They also tend to be practical, focused, and future-oriented. They demand interesting work assignments. They thrive on open-ended projects that require sophisticated problem solving, and we are computer literate. 5 characteristics of the work environment that Gen Xers find most rewarding is control over their own schedules. I'm a victim of that. I don't like being told when I can and can't work. Opportunity to improve their marketable skills, always looking for training, different types of degrees, different types of certifications. Exposure to decision makers. I do not like having to rely on a guy in front of me to talk to the top boss. And I don't know if any of you are like that, but I have my own ideas, my own decisions I want to make. I don't like going through a middleman, and I'm guilty of that. The chance to put their names on tangible results. We want credit where credit's due, and clear areas of responsibility. What I like to know, at least in my job, and I work here in CID or when I'm teaching at UT or Kilgore, is that I'm calling the shots. I know who I answer to, but more importantly, I try to have my area of responsibility taken care of, or what I like to refer to as having my house cleaned up. That way there's no problems. My guys know what I expect of them, my detectives, and they know what they can expect from me. Now, moving on to Generation Y, born after 81 to about 1995, which is known as the Millennials. This includes the offsprings of baby boomers as well as the influx of young immigrants. With more than 73 million members, it will have a huge impact on future products, marketing, and managing practices. They've grown up in sophisticated technologies and they were exposed early. Kids at this age were playing on the internet and getting computers and iPhones and laptops and all that. But they're good multitaskers. Multitasking is easy for them, as filtering out distractions and juggling numerous projects. Short attention spans, constant need for stimulation or entertainment in job, and a blurring of lines between work and leisure time on the job. Now, this intergenerational conflict comes when evidence indicates that there's incidence of intergenerational conflicts low. Such conflict seems to stem out of 3 primary causes: the work ethic, different generations and different perceptions of what makes an employee dedicated, that organization hierarchy. Young members are bypassing the chain of command, older members thinking seniority trumps qualifications. Managing change. Old members perceive as reluctant to change. Younger members perceived as constantly wanting to try new ideas and saying, hey, if it fails, great, we won't do it that way. Where older crews pretty much say, well, we tried it once and we don't want to do it again. That one time only shot mentality. Separating workers from different generations is not a solution to intergenerational conflict. I tend to put them together. I've got young detectives, baby cops, working with older cops, and sometimes it's kind of fun to see the clash of ideas and different things happening in the workplace. But when you're going to manage diversity, again, racial and ethnic minorities, women of immigrants will account for an increasing large segments of the U.S. workforce over time. Be on the lookout for other large and growing groups of older workers working with disabilities, gay and lesbian workers, members of Gen X and Gen Y working in or moving around jobs. Businesses that want to grow will have to rely on diversity. Let's see. Talked about female workers, Gen X and Gen Y, what they want. Older workers, again, you're going to start seeing people work longer. All right, simply because they either can't afford to retire or they don't want to retire. That's the big thing. A lot of people want to come in. People who were working for you full-time may come back on a part-time basis because there's still a lot of life in them, but they want to set their own schedules. Be open to that if possible. We've talked about workers with disabilities. However, prospective employers want to know what job applicants can do for them, not what their limitations are. A disability will not matter if you can prove that you can contribute to the employer's bottom line. Poll after poll of employers demonstrates that they regard most people with disability as good workers, punctual, conscientious, and competent, if given reasonable accommodations. Despite this evidence, persons with disabilities are less likely to be working than any other demographic group under the age of 65. All right, we talked about that. A topic that's coming up, as I mentioned earlier, is the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, transsexual employees. Either you attract, retain, or motivate the best talents, or you lose business. Okay, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transsexual employees as a group are highly educated and comprise 6% of the population. More than 75% of the Fortune 1000 firms have added that sexual orientation of their non-discrimination policies. 59% of the nation's top 500 companies now offer health benefits to same-sex couples, up from 6% in 1996. Here are some key lessons the text talks about. Targeting diverse clients drives the need for similarly diverse workforce. To drive the diversity initiative throughout the company, it must be integrated into business plans that require to measure specific results. Leaders of the efforts to acquire diverse clients must not only have client acquisition expertise in that specific market segment, but also have strong project management experience. So to prepare for the coming changes in internal organizational environments, develop age, gender, and race ethnic profiles of the present workforce. Assess job performance requirements. Check for possible unfairness in performance management. And in other words, keep an eye on your managers. Keep an eye on your supervisors. Talk to your people. Use interest surveys to determine what current workers want. Provide opportunities for employee training and career counseling. And explore the workers' alternatives and traditional work patterns. So we covered quite a bit on this, guys. I want you guys, again, to be familiar with the different generations, the different diversity that we have in the workplace. I do have your quiz set up. I've got your discussion board ready to go this week. I do not expect any work today. It's a holiday. That's fine. Just be sure to get everything done by this coming Sunday, which will be the 31st of May. You guys have a great week and a good holiday. If you have any questions or anything, just give me a shout. I'll talk to you soon.